Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having fantastic Wednesdays, wherever we may be, across this great country or this great land. We have got a lot to get into. I'm going to give you all my college football gambling picks. I'm going to talk about the latest in the midterm elections. And I just want to start off with, I told you how awkward Joe Biden's celebration of inflation at a 40-year high and the worst day for the stock market since he came into the presidency was going to be. And the truth of the matter is, the fallout's even worse than I thought. And I'll just continue to say, any person who advised Joe Biden that it made sense to have a White House celebration on a day when inflation is announced at 8.3%, just shy of an all-time 40-year high, on a day when the stock market declines 1,200 points, and where basically everyone can see that all of the economic policies that you've put in place are collapsing, that you would be so tone deaf that you would have singers out celebrating this event is an abject failure and complete and total embarrassment, and is just further evidence of the fact that everything Joe Biden touches turns to crap. All right, a bunch of different stories that we want to hit, but I want to start by making all of you rich, because the one thing that unites everyone is everybody'd like a little bit more money than they already got. That's what capitalism is, right? So Friday night, we've got a game going on. I thought it was Thursday night. It's tough to keep up with every day. Florida State, Louisville. -2.5 Seminoles. I think they get it done. They haven't played since they beat LSU. Louisville coming off a nice win over Central Florida, 20-14. They fought back from a 14-7 deficit. Didn't allow Central Florida to score in the second half. I like for Florida State, however, to go on the road against Louisville, cover the 2.5. We get started on Friday there. Georgia, South Carolina. If you look at the Georgia-South Carolina game, historically, it has been very close. There have been a lot of battles that have ended up maybe as a surprise. Good rivalry game, good border state battle. Probably the best rival that South Carolina really has, at least in their mind, in the entirety of the SEC. And I think that South Carolina is going to cover the 24.5. And I said in my write-up, this is one of those games where if I'm wrong, you end up feeling like a complete imbecile, because clearly South Carolina is nowhere near as good as Georgia. But I feel like the Bulldogs are maybe not going to bring their A game here. South Carolina, with the home crowd behind them, is going to play better, and 24.5 is a big number. I'm on Cal. Cal is going on the road against Notre Dame. I think Cal covers a big number here. Plus 10.5. I don't think Notre Dame, I should say, can cover a double-digit spread. Just lost their quarterback, Tyler Buckner, for the rest of the year. So far, Marcus Freeman and this offense has been very mediocre. Marcus Freeman only has coached 3 games in his life. Notre Dame certainly needs to get a win. Cal's got 2 wins already. They've got a little bit of momentum. They beat UC Davis. They beat UNLV. I think the Golden Bears go on the road, keep this inside of 10.5. 2 best games that are going on this weekend. Penn State, Auburn. Brian Harsin has a lot of pressure on him right now. It's clear that his athletic director who hired him is now gone. There was a lot of pressure to move on from Brian Harsin last year. The team, frankly, at Auburn is not very good this year. There's a lot of coaches out there who could potentially be interested in that Auburn job given what they can pay to get somebody to come down on the plains. I will be there in person watching Penn State Auburn. I'll be there for Big Noon kickoff. Looking forward to flying in and being present for this one. But I think if you look at Penn State, there are a lot of questions as well. Sean Clifford, veteran quarterback. You've got James Franklin that's trying to establish, we believe at least, that Ohio State and Michigan are very good in the Big Ten East. Verdict still out on Michigan State, but we know the Big Ten West is very bad. And so there is a slanted dynamic at play here where all the best teams are in the Big Ten East. It's going to be a tough schedule for Penn State. Certainly going to be a tough schedule for Auburn as well. We don't really know what either of these teams has. And so I think the most likely outcome here is I'm not sold on the Auburn offense. I don't think Penn State's going to take a lot of risks on the offensive side of the ball. I like the under 47.5 on this one. Second best game that is happening over the weekend would have been the best game if App State hadn't pulled off the upset over Texas A&M. I like the under on Miami at Texas A&M as well, under 45.5. This A&M offense is atrocious. Haynes King may one day turn into a good quarterback. He is not there right now. Against App State, Texas A&M couldn't put up over 100 yards of rush or passing offense. That's unheard of, especially because App State gave up 60-plus to UNC. We're not talking about a steel curtain defense. I like the under in this one. I think Miami comes on the road. Texas A&M battens down what is a fairly solid defense, and the under 45.5 hits. Mike Leach, Mississippi State, going on the road against LSU. Last time they went on the road against LSU was Mike Leach's debut, if I remember correctly. And Mississippi State won. And Bo Pelini basically got fired over this game. I think what's going to happen here is we will get Mississippi State, who may well be the second best team in the SEC West. Think Alabama's the best, even though they didn't play well against Texas. But Mississippi State and Arkansas, solid arguments, I think, for both teams right now. Mississippi State was great on the road, caught up with that game after I fell asleep watching it, late night start at Arizona. They've proven they can go on the road and win. I like the Will Rogers component here. I like the Bulldogs to beat LSU by a touchdown or more in Death Valley and cover the 2.5. Akron, going up against Tennessee. Vols are going to get to 3-0 and set up the big game against Florida, but I think they pulled their starters early in the third quarter. This number is all the way out to 47.5. 47.5. As much as I think Tennessee may well play very well in the first half and likely is going to have a lot of offensive success, 47.5 is too many. I'm going to take the Zips plus the 47.5. South Florida on the road against the Gators. Gators trying to bounce back after a woeful second half against Kentucky. What Anthony Richardson are we going to get on the week before Florida goes on the road for the first time and plays against Tennessee? I'm going to take the Bulls to cover the plus 24.5 in this one. Old Dominion at Virginia. I'm going to take ODU. They already pulled off the upset over Virginia Tech. I don't think Virginia is very good. Not very good offensively. 24-3, I believe, was the final, the game they lost against Illinois. I like ODU plus the points. Liberty, Wake Forest. I like the over 63.5. Hugh Freeze going up against Dave Clawson. There you have it. 10 winners for all of you on the college football bet calendar. Couple of stories. Have you guys paid attention to this? I wasn't even aware this was trending. I wasn't aware this had turned into a big story. There's a lot of people debating because I guess the new Little Mermaid in the live action film is going to be black. And obviously the Little Mermaid in the original animated feature was a white person with red hair, Ariel. Everybody's obsessed with what Ariel looks like. Here's my take on this sudden controversy that has emerged. If it is a fictional character that is not rooted in a particular time or place, then I think anybody of any race can play a mermaid, right? So if Ariel is Hispanic, if Ariel is Asian, if Ariel is white or black, doesn't really matter. It's a fictional character that was originally animated film, Hans Christian Andersen, whatever. I think that mermaids, call me crazy, I think that mermaids can be any race, all right? Just have to be good looking and also have flippers or whatever it is. All right, so I don't understand why this is controversial. I feel the same way about James Bond. James Bond was black, make it happen. I feel the same way about Captain America or anybody else. Find a good actor who can play the role. Race should be relatively inconsequential, in my opinion, in roles such as those. But I do think it's ridiculous when you have, personally, like I went and watched Hamilton, But I think the idea that you are going to have multi-race people play direct historical figures, like Alexander Hamilton was a white dude, all right? So for me personally, I think it takes you out of the movie or out of the play or out of the show when someone doesn't look historically like the person that they are playing. And it doesn't even have to be race-based, right? So let's pretend that you have, like, who's a really famous person? John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy is really famous. If I watch John F. Kennedy and the movie is being played and the person who is playing John F. Kennedy is super fat and has a deep Southern accent, I'm going to be like, this is not John F. Kennedy, right? Like, if the purpose of this is to be a historically reflective film, then the person who is playing JFK should look something like JFK, all right? If you got a fat Southern accented dude playing JFK, then I'm going to be like, hey, this takes me out of the story. I can't really enjoy it as much. So if there's a historical setting where you know what the history of that setting would be, then it takes me out of the movie. Like, I'll give you an example. If I watched a Civil War movie and some of the characters who were playing Southern generals were actually Asian, Hispanic, and black, I would be like, hey, I'm not really following Robert E. Lee being played by an Asian woman. The Battle of Gettysburg is different to me if there's an Asian woman who is playing General Robert E. Lee. Now, if it's being done to be funny or be satirical, that's different. But if you're trying to give me a historically relevant document, a film that is supposed to show me something about the Battle of Gettysburg, then I think Robert E. Lee should be an old dude with a white beard. That old white guy with a white beard, because that's what Robert E. Lee looked like, right? I think that Abraham Lincoln should be an old dude with a beard, right? If you gave me the clean-faced Abraham Lincoln and he was super fat, I'd be like, man, it's hard for me to see this as being Abraham Lincoln, all right? That's my thought on this. Fantastical characters, whatever. Don't really have a strong opinion on it. Find whoever the best actor or actress can be. But I will say this whole controversy over, like, only trans actors can play actors, only gay actors can play gay roles. Like, the whole point of acting is to pretend to be someone that you are not. And so this Hollywood woke charade that has lost its mind, like, if it takes me out of not being able to enjoy a film, like, I understand Brendan Fraser is under siege right now because he's not actually fat and he wore a fat suit. And people are like, well, this is offensive because they didn't even have a fat guy play a fat guy. Well, why? Like, that's the purpose of the role, right? Side note, and I need to get my buddies from college to write this. People think, oh, Clay, you give all sorts of crazy opinions. One of my longest running opinions, which may end up actually becoming to fruition here, when I was in college, I said that one day Brendan Fraser was going to win an Oscar. And that's George of the Jungle, Brendan Fraser. And everyone lost their minds. I need to pull up Brendan Fraser's overall IMDb page here. But everybody lost their mind when I said, hey, Brendan Fraser is going to win an Oscar one day. This was back when he was doing George of the Jungle, Encino Man, Airheads, Dudley Do-Right. I think he was really good in one movie that I was basing it on. And I'm going to pull it up. I feel like it was, and I remember thinking, like, this dude has got some decent talent. This is before The Mummy. This is back in the day. School Ties, I think, may have been what I was basing my my Brendan Fraser could win an Oscar one day based on this. And it ended up being, like, super controversial. Everybody was fired up in college that I would make this argument. And then what happens? Brendan Fraser may end up winning an Oscar, even though he's not a fat guy. So anyway, this is a controversy. I think it's a crazy one. The NBA has suspended Robert Sarver for a year and fined him $10 million for using basically inappropriate language. They did a big investigation on him. I I obviously think the NBA is super woke, but I think we need to have real conversations in this country. I mean, legitimately real conversation about the difference between words and actions. And this has been something that I have been on for a very, very long time. In America today, you are better off getting a DUI than you are sending an inappropriate tweet, right? A tweet that angers the wrong people or whatever it might be. To me, a DUI is far worse than a joke that doesn't land right or an opinion that makes somebody upset on social media. And I think because of Twitter and the ease with which people can read what people write or watch videos with people, we wildly overpunish words and very often underpunish actions. And this is just a big picture argument that I've been making for years that I think I'm 100% right on. You're better off if you are a young NBA player getting a DUI if you're a white guy than having quoted rap lyrics when you were 15 on Twitter. You'll get criticized more for quoting rap lyrics at 15 on Twitter than you will for getting a DUI. And to me, we've got it completely backward. Actions should have consequences, and I mean actions which put people in danger, which potentially could be violent. You are better off being engaged in violent behavior than you are being a white guy who says the wrong word. And this is just, I think, fundamentally broken. People are mad because the NBA is not giving enough of a punishment here. I think this is a larger story, and it continues to be the sports world's willingness to punish people more for words than they do actions. Like, the NBA gave Robert Sarver a more significant punishment for word choice as an owner than the NFL did for Deshaun Watson being accused of sexually assaulting 30 women. Okay? Now, those are different leagues. The precedents are different for those different leagues. But one is an alleged criminal act that certainly was sued of a civil nature and involves 30 women. The other is he just engaged in word choice that made some people uncomfortable. To me, actions, and I mean actual tangible actions of a potentially violent or criminal nature, are far more significant than anything somebody says. And yet it seems to me that we drastically overpunish thought, ideas, word choice, and oftentimes drastically unpunish actually serious consequences. Now, I don't think leagues should be investigating these things as much as they are. I think there's a criminal justice system. We have a civil court system. If there are court-related endeavors that you can look at and allow the justice system to work its way through, I think that makes more sense. But this has been an argument I've been making for years, and evidently I'm in the minority when it comes to this opinion. Cardi B. Did you see Cardi B, who was a big Joe Biden supporter, is now super fired up with the fact that inflation is out of control? And I shared this story. We wrote about it on Outkick. I thought it was pretty fascinating because when you actually break all this down, Cardi B even seems to be leaving behind her friend Joe Biden. And some of the quotes are kind of crazy. She says she wants to know how people are living. She said, I was looking at some areas, the way prices soar up, how are people surviving? I want to know, quoting Cardi B. My family and my friends, they're grateful to have me, humble brag. But it's just like, what happens to people who don't have a me? All these promises are being made, but living is unbearable. There's no MFing inventory when it comes to homes. Nobody's going to try to sell their effing homes. That is Cardi B talking to everybody out there about the inflation issue. I agree, Cardi B. What do people who aren't fortunate enough to have you or me in their lives actually do? It's a very great question that Cardi B is asking. Denmark. It's a big story. Probably won't get much attention. Denmark is banning the COVID shot for anyone under the age of 50 because it is not safe, in Denmark's opinion, for people under the age of 50 to be getting the COVID shot. I'm reading from my friend Alex Berenson's Substack. You can go read this yourself. Denmark will bar almost everyone under 50 from the mRNA COVID jabs, the Danish Health Authority said yesterday. Denmark had already ended COVID shots for nearly everyone under 18. The new rule says that Danish people under 50 will only be allowed to receive the shots if they are higher risk of becoming severely ill from COVID-19. Danish Health Authority says essentially the risks of the mRNA jabs now outweigh their benefits for healthy people under 50. And that view is implicit in the announcement. In other words, this is a major issue going forward. I'm concerned that the fallout from the COVID shots is only just beginning, and I am very glad that I have never gotten a COVID shot. Good news. Kari Lake is a stud. She is running for governor in Arizona. We've had her on the show, the Clay and Buck Show, several times. Every time she talks, I think, man, she is a phenomenal communicator, outstanding candidate who is absolutely killing it in her public appearances and in her campaign. Well, I will look at the updated numbers. You guys know I started off this show by giving you all my gambling picks for the weekend. One of my favorite places to go to assess the overall political market is the offshore markets where you are allowed to bet on who you think is going to win different elections. And increasingly, a lot of these candidates who are Republicans are having and finding a great deal of support on the markets. So Kari Lake is now favored in Arizona to win the governor's race in that state. And the most recent numbers that I saw are suggestive that there is a lot of movement in the direction of Republican state candidates in both the Senate and the governor's races. I think Kari Lake is an absolute stud. I think she's going to win comfortably, and she's going to provide some support, substantial support, I think, to the Blake Masters campaign also in Arizona. Flip side, the worst statewide candidate who was nominated by either party in a competitive statewide race is John Fetterman. And that was before John Fetterman had a stroke and essentially confirmed that he can't talk by every public event that he has had since then. He's trying to avoid debating Dr. Oz as much as he possibly can. I wish him well. I wish that he had not had a stroke. I wish that he was going to be able to recover. But the truth of the matter is this: he's an awful candidate because he supported Bernie Sanders and has long time supported all Bernie Sanders policies. And also because of a video I shared that I would encourage all of you to go watch if you haven't seen it already. Back in 2013, John Fetterman heard what he thought was gunshots, hopped into his pickup truck, grabbed his shotgun, and chased down a random black jogger out for a run in his town. He forced the black jogger to stop. He pulled the gun on the jogger and kept it there, according to the jogger, and waited for police to arrive. This sounds very similar, unfortunately, to what happened to Ahmaud Arbery. John Fetterman later comes out that it was just fireworks going off. This is an unarmed black jogger that Fetterman pulled a gun on, held until police arrived. This jogger had done absolutely nothing wrong. And so as you break this down, and consider what exactly is going on here, I think you need to contemplate and consider and analyze why in the world would anybody vote for John Fetterman when he's this much of a disaster on policy? Again, he's a Bernie Sanders clone. He thinks women should be able to compete. Women should have to compete against men in sports. He's in favor of the Leah Thomas. He thinks that we're too tough on criminals right now, that we're putting them behind bars for too long. All of this is major issue that should create consequential concerns. But the guy also can't speak. And when he could speak, he was pulling shotguns on random black joggers and holding them hostage even though they did nothing wrong. This is a guy who has no business anywhere near the Senate. And it's not a surprise to me that as people are learning more and more about John Fetterman, his support is crumbling on an increasing level. In fact, according to a CBS poll that came out today, John Fetterman now only up 5 on Dr. Oz. I think Dr. Oz is going to go on and win this race. I've said it for a long time. There were 3 people that I believe are going to win that are underdogs. Kari Lake, now favored in Arizona. Could have gotten her at a substantial underdog. Herschel Walker, now even money. Poll came out today that suggests that they are not going to be in a sort of tight race. We'll see exactly what this suggests. But I believe Herschel Walker's going to win, Kari Lake's going to win, and I think Dr. Oz is going to win as well. That would be my parlay. I was saying a poll came out that suggested Warnock's above Herschel Walker. The last 3, I think, prior to that had all shown Herschel Walker in the lead. I think Herschel Walker and Brian Kemp are going to win comfortably. Fetterman has agreed to debate, by the way, on October 25th, which is not very far in advance of the actual election and long after everybody has begun to return their ballots as absentee and mail-in votes. All right. Appreciate all of you. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I am Clay Travis. Got to go work on the new book right now. I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.